Hi, and welcome to my channel. My name is Amanda, and we are going to talk about the best books that I have read so far this year. By the end of April, I had finished 109 books this year, and out of those 109 books, 5 of them were 5 stars. So we're going to talk about those 5 books, and then I want to hear about your 5 stars for this year so that I can add them to my want to read list. So, number 1, in February, it took me all the way to February to get a 5-star, but my first one is The Humane Society for Creatures and Cryptids by Stephanie Gillis. Stephanie is QWERTY on YouTube. So if you don't know, she has a channel. I'll link it below. You can go check out her channel. If you've been here watching me, you know that she's the one that created the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, which we call Her Kid, because one thing I have learned about her is that she loves to shorten things and call them by their acronyms. So Her Kid is the hardest reading challenge you'll ever do, and HISFACAC is what she calls her book, which is The Humane Society for Creatures and Cryptids. Okay, we are following 3 sisters and another POV that we get during this book. And it is, I think I want to say that it's considered young adult because one of the POVs, 2 of the POVs, I guess, are in high school. But to me, this seems more like a new adult because we do have the other 2 sisters that are already done with school and in their 20s. So I don't even know how... Okay, I'll just tell you basically what's going on. The title tells you a lot about it. They're in Colorado. They live in Colorado, and they have like a nature preserve, but they actually take care of creatures and cryptids. And it's not just magical creatures like like Bigfoot, which they do have a Bigfoot, but it's also other new creatures that Stephanie made up that I think are amazing, like humming drakes, which are tiny little hummingbird dragons. Oh my gosh. They look so cute. There's one on the cover, which I have a copy of the book, but I think you can see it better if I pop up a cover because then I don't have to keep my hands still and I can talk with my hands like I do. So that is the humming drake on the cover and it's adorable. And then every few sections in the book, every new chapter, there is a description of another animal that they take care of. And it tells about the animal, where they got it from, what they think the magical properties are, what they've discovered through observation and experimentation, not experimentation in a bad way, but like we think that this thing can do this, and then they present it with an opportunity to do this and it does it. And they're like, okay, yes, or it doesn't. And they're like, I don't know, that's not been completely discovered whether that's a thing or not. That kind of experiments. So anyway, but they live in this town and everybody thinks they're outcasts and witches. Not everybody thinks. Everybody has made them outcasts. And they get called witches and they think that they have cast spells on people. And there's all these rumors about them going around town. Well, their mom is off trying to find a new creature. Apparently that's all she does. She doesn't want to be home anymore, so she leaves. And there are a couple of other people that work for another one of these humane societies because they're all across the world. And he's coming to prepare the space for this new creature that's coming. Well, they have never had anybody at their house. Everything has to be super secret. They can't tell anybody. And our youngest sister has started liking someone at school, but she can't really bring that someone around because, again, they can't have anybody at their house. So there's a lot of family dynamics going on in here. There's a lot of fantasy elements of living in the real world, but with magical creatures. So there's a lot of that stuff in here. But ultimately, it is a story about family and about siblings and about finding your place and not just falling in to do exactly what is expected of you because of where you were born or because of the family you were born into. Learning maybe that you don't have to be the person that you thought you had to be because of the expectations that your family has on you, or the expectations that you put on yourself just because of what you observed about your family. And so that's how our family does it. And our family needs these things. And so you just take on those things. And so through this novel, the girls are all kind of learning, like, we don't have to fall into that just because it was expected of us, or maybe it wasn't, and we put that on ourselves. But anyway, so it's a learning journey for all of them. It is very good character work. I loved the characters so much. It is going to be a series. However, it's self-published and she's working on it, is all that I can say. There's definitely not any reason that you couldn't read this book and then wait for the next one to come out. You're not going to be mad going, I don't feel completed in this book. I think this book did a really good job of wrapping up the storylines that were in there and leaving enough things open that there could definitely be more things, but not the main plot. The main plot is not left open in this one. So that is the first book that I read this year that was 5 stars. And I know that I talked about it when it came out. I've talked about it a lot anyway because I liked it so much. I just ordered another copy of it and donated it to the library. And I told my coworkers, which this is my last week at work, but I told them, I said, y'all have got to read this book. Just pass it around and everybody read it. So hopefully they will, and we can talk about it. My next 5-star is book 9 in a series. But if you have read any of them, this is called An Act of Foul Play. But what you need to know is that it is a Lady Hardcastle mystery. And if you have read any of these, I just feel like you know exactly what I'm talking about. You have to start this book, or you start these books with a smile on your face, and it does not go off the whole entire time. Lady Hardcastle and Flo are just the absolute cutest. And there are so many times where in my brain, I will hear somebody like say the word tiny with anything. It doesn't matter. And I think, oh, Flo, like Flo, the tiny servant. Because Lady Hardcastle calls her that because apparently Flo is really small, even though she like knows all these hand-to-hand fighting things. And anyway, it is, oh my gosh, it is about Lady Hardcastle and her lady's maid named Flo. Florence is her name, but they call her Flo. And Emily is Lady Hardcastle's name, but nobody ever calls her that. Just a couple people do. Most people call her Lady Hardcastle. So anyway, they have retired from their job, which this is also in the early 1900s at this point. So in the late 1800s, they were... Lady Hardcastle's husband was a ambassador. So he would leave and go from England all over the world. And she, Lady Hardcastle, I don't know how it started, but she became a spy ultimately for England, and she would go to these countries with her husband, and she and Flo were responsible for hearing things that they needed to hear and doing missions to protect people that they needed to protect, and just getting into places that a lady and her lady's maid could get into and find out information about that a regular person or a man wouldn't be able to get into. So they have now retired. Lady Hardcastle is 43, or she was. When the series started, she was somewhere around 42 or 43, which I think is hilarious because now she's super old. I'm 47 and she's old and can't do anything anymore. And so they want her to retire to the country. Well, so she and Flo retire to the country. But here's what happens when you make somebody retire when they're still so young, is that she gets into some mess because she's bored. And she's like, yeah, let's go do that. And so they have a car also that Lady Hardcastle drives. And apparently she cannot drive. And there are no speed limits. This is the beginning of cars. There are no speed limits. There are no traffic laws. And so she just goes as fast as she can possibly go. And the snark that Flo has for her and the inside jokes that they have for each other, like I'm telling you, I smile from the beginning of these books till the end. And for the longest time, I was like, I'm not going to give it a 5-star because like it's not an earth-shattering story, but it doesn't have to be. They make me so incredibly happy, and I look forward to reading them, and I am actually so scared about what's going to happen when I get to the end. This one got me caught up to where I was And I think there's one book left that I still have to read, and I'm so scared that this is going to stop. So I need T.E. Kinsey to never stop writing about Lady Hardcastle and Flo, because it just makes me so happy. And there are mysteries. Every one of them is a mystery. We're solving a mystery of something to do in the town. But I'm telling you, these books are really Lady Hardcastle and Flo, and they're like little group of people around them. And oh my gosh, they're so good. Like, I can't even describe how wonderfully written the relationship between these two women is. And I just love it. If you want a friendship novel, you can't ever go wrong with this one. And then we switch gears completely, because the next 5-star I had was a reread, and it was 5 stars the first time, and it is Sleepwalking by Daniel Barnett. I know I talked about this a lot when I was reading it this time, and I did talk about it when I was reading it before, but I did a lot of live stream chats on Steve's channel, which I will link it below. He's changed his the name of his channel and a lot of what he does, but he still has a channel. So I'm going to link Steve below, and we did a lot of live stream chats with Daniel as we were reading through these books. So we would read a book, talk to Daniel, read a book, talk to Daniel, and we did that through all 6 books. I don't think I joined until the 3rd book, maybe. So I didn't talk to him about this Sleepwalking book until later on. But this book starts out with the world going dark, and that is all we know. And in a lot of these like dystopian horror, like the beginning of the end, because I'm also reading The Stand right now, it's making me think through a lot of these things. And I feel like Station 11 does the same thing, and Swan Song does the same thing as Sleepwalking does. It starts us out in an everyday normal world. People are living their lives, having no idea that the end, or whatever the end is, the end of civilization, is about to happen. And I love reading about that transition from normal everyday life to now everything has changed. And all of those books that I mentioned, they walk you through different people in different parts of the country and different parts of the world, what is happening to them as this thing is coming or has come. And what Daniel does in Sleepwalking is, because the difference is in The Stand and Swan Song and maybe Station 11, we're everywhere. We're kind of all over the place. But Daniel's is more in one specific town, and we're meeting different people in that town and finding out where they were, what's going on with them. And then we follow ultimately just 2 of them as they have a history with each other. We know that they know each other, and we're going back and forth in their points of views till they come together and like run into each other in the first book. And then we get to see how they're going to maybe navigate through this new world together or not. Like, they have to figure out how they're going to do it, or if they're going to do it. And first of all, I love that kind of book. All the books that I mentioned, I loved them a lot. So it's not hard for me to love this book, but Daniel does such a good job of creating characters that are both lovable and also just parts of them that you're like, oh, I don't want to, like the feelings that I have about John when I read this first book is that I want to love him, and also I want to ignore the warning signs that I see there for John. So there's that dichotomy the whole time you're reading it, where I'm like, I really want to love him, but also I know that there is not good. There is not always good inside John. And so I get the same issues with Maria, but there are aspects of Maria that is like me. Like, she also just wants to stick her head in the sand and be like, I'm relying on John. Like, I don't have anybody else to turn to at this point in what we're dealing with. And so I'm going to rely on John as well. And so she wants to ignore the bad stuff just like I do. So especially in the first book, when you're getting to know the characters, you also get a sense of how the horror is going to go. Like, there is some really gross moments in this book and some really heartbreaking moments just in the first book where we are immediately thrown into death and that things are not going to be just different but okay. They're going to be different and horrible. And so I just think that Daniel did such a great job with the pacing of this book and the setting up of what was to come. And there are 6 books out in this series. He has finished the first arc of the story. And I know that he has written book 7 because I am a member of his Patreon and he is giving us sneak peek chapters of the next book. And book number 7 is fantastic so far. That's all I'm going to say. So I think that you guys should definitely read this book, but only if you can handle horror and lots of gore. But it's so good. If you can do that, it's so good. Okay, the next 5 stars, there were 2 back-to-back. I did not know what was happening with my life at this point because I read 2 5 stars in February, and then I kicked off the month of March with 2 5 stars back-to-back. I didn't know what was going on. I thought my whole life had changed. It had not, but I thought it had. Anyway, The Keeper of Lost Things was my first 5-star read in March. I didn't even want to read this book. I was like, it looks good, but it's historical fiction, and I don't do well always with historical fiction. Here's what I've discovered, though. I like it because I read it seldomly. If I had to read historical fiction back to back to back, I wouldn't like it. But if I throw one in there each month or one every couple of months, I really like that book. But then I can't say, like, I love historical fiction. So, I don't know. But anyway, this book. We follow this woman who goes to work for this older man who lives alone in this house. His wife has died, and there's a whole backstory there that we find out as we go through the story, so that's all I'm going to say about it. Apparently, it's warm enough now for the mowers to come out. I mean, it's 45 degrees outside, but anyway. So, she goes to work for him, and she is pretty much just like an administrative assistant. There's one room that he doesn't want her to go in at all, and it's his study, and he's like, there's no reason for you to be in there, so just don't go in there. She's like, all right, fine. So she does everything else for him. She mails things. He was a writer. We know that. And that's about it. Well, then, I mean, like I said, he's older. He is dying, and he leaves her a key to his study. And he just says, you'll know what to do with what's in there. So she's like, what in the world? So she goes in there. There is all kinds of things, like random things in there. And they all have little notes on them that says when he found them and where he found them. So he had been collecting lost things, and we find out it's because he lost something. And because this is now, I think it's set in 2019, but the reason it's historical fiction is because we kind of go back in time. We spend most of our time in the past because as she is looking at these items, we then get to go back and see what happened to the item, how he found it, and where they were. And so we kind of take a tour through history as he is gathering up these lost items. And she has the groundskeeper is also helping her do some of this stuff, like cataloging. And there's a little girl that lives next door. I said little girl. I don't really know how old she is. I want to say she's like 12, but you know what? She could be like an older teenager now that I'm thinking about it. Anyway, she comes over and starts helping, and the 3 of them kind of make a decision to try to find the owners of these lost things. And it was just so well done. The pacing, it's not very fast. It's a kind of slow-paced book, but the time that you're not moving the plot forward is spent with the characters, and the character development I thought was really well done. I loved the interaction between the 3 of them. I thought adding in the neighbor character, the girl that came over, was so smart. It added a dimension to the story and also brought in the 2 main characters for us to get to know them a little bit more and for them to grow in some of the things that was going on with them. I just loved it. I thought that it could not have been done better. I was engrossed in what was happening with this story the whole time I was reading it, and it was fantastic. So I really recommend, especially if you like historical fiction, even though, like I said, the whole thing is not historical because some of it takes place modern times, but it's so good. Then the next one, I know I talked about this one. It is A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher. And I gave this 5 stars. I was all in with our main character. We start out with this girl who is being controlled by her mom. And I don't mean controlled like we think of as being controlled. This is a fantasy novel. She is controlled by her mom like a puppet. She cannot move, sit, stand, walk, do anything, talk, unless her mother wills it when she is under the spell. So when we meet her on page 1, she is being controlled by her mother. And I immediately connected with this girl, not because I've been controlled by my magical mother, but because I wanted to help her. And I was like, no, I am following this story because I need this girl to be okay. Well, her mom wants money, and she hears about a wealthy man who needs a wife. And she's like, okay, we're going. My benefactor that has been here with me is no longer here with me. So we're going to find a new one. And I know this guy who needs to get married. So then that brings in our second point of view, which is this guy's sister. And at first she's like, oh, nice. There's a woman that is here and he's helping her, you know? And then it comes into like, oh, is she really who she says she is? So then we are following the second point of view. So we do have more POVs, but the ones that were important to me was the daughter and the sister. And the daughter is now living with this man and his family that she knows that her mom is just trying to manipulate him into marrying her so that she can get money. And his sister is starting to realize that this is going on, but at the same time, the girl can't say anything because she can be controlled by her mom. She's not controlled all the time, just when her mom wants her to. Like when she's been disobedient and her mom's like, I'm going to take control of you. Anyway, this book was just so good. It's really short. Also, my book boyfriend, Richard, is in this story. So if you guys need a good book boyfriend, Richard is the best. You can use him if you want to. If anybody now needs to have, because they'll ask that question sometimes in different tags and different things like, who's your book boyfriend? And I'm always like, I don't have one of those. It's Richard from A Sorceress Comes to Call. So that brings us all the way down to the middle of April, where I finally got my next 5-star read, and that was Pet by Akweke Emezi. I did not know what to expect. This is a middle grade. No, it's a YA. It's a YA, which I can't believe this. I say all the time, I don't read YA, and now I've given 2 of them 5 stars this year. Anyway, apparently I do read YA books. Anyway, this book is about a girl, and she and her parents, her mom's name is Bitter, and I know there's a book about Bitter as well, which I have not read, but her mom is Bitter. And then our girl goes down to her mom's painting studio one night, and her mom has painted, they call it a painting, but I feel like it's like a 3D art thing pretty much, because it has things poking out of it, like actually sticking out of the canvas. And some of those things are razor blades. And our girl touches it and starts bleeding, gets blood on the canvas, and something comes out of the canvas. And she doesn't know what's going on. She goes upstairs tells her parents, and her parents were like, oh, not again. Like, this has happened before. And so in this world that Pet lives in, there is no evil. There are no bad decisions that are made. They call them monsters, and all the monsters have been dealt with by the angels, and the angels are the people that fought against the monsters to kind of get them to where they are in the world they live in. Well, the thing that comes out of the painting tells her, like, I'm here to fight the monsters. And she's like, there aren't any monsters. And he's like, oh, yeah, there is. And it's at your best friend's house. And that's all they tell her. And then she's over here like, what am I going to do? Am I going to tell my friend about this? Am I not going to tell my friend about this? Like, so she has a lot of issues going on as to what she's going to do. And then she's got this thing, this being that he says, just call me Pet. That's where we get the name Pet from. And Pet then is there to defeat the monsters that they didn't even know existed anymore. To me, this book shows that even if outwardly people look normal and angelic and not monstery, they could still be monsters. It's also such a good book about friendship and about staying in there and not backing up when things get hard, because being there for someone and being there for your friend means all the time, not just when it's easy and when it's fun and when things are going well, but also staying in there and staying in it and walking alongside them when things are awful and hard and it would be easier to run away. Don't do that. Like, that's what this book is about. And I loved it so much. Bitter is on my TBR, and I will be hopefully reading it soon. Probably not for another few months, but hopefully this year I'll get to read Bitter. So it was really good, and I highly recommend it. Especially if you're not a big fantasy reader, because this doesn't have a ton of fantasy, but it was like a contemporary novel with just a little fantasy because something came out of the painting. Anyway, I still thought it was so great. And that is it. That is all the 5 stars that I have had. This is technically May 6th, and I have read 1 5-star in May, but I'm going to hold off on that. That's for the first 4 months. And maybe I'll come after the next 4 months and tell you about the 5 stars that I've had in that trimester. I don't know. I mean, if I divide it into 4 months, it's not going to be quarters. It's going to be trimesters of the year. So anyway, I'll do another one in a few months and we'll go over the 5 stars for that. But that is it for the first 4 months. Like I said at the beginning, let me know down below what your 5-star reads were. And I am really excited to chat about these, learn about yours. If you have differing opinions about the ones that I gave 5 stars to, I would like to hear those down below as well. And I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.